let's go back in time. When you first met with Tim Burton, what made you want to jump into this really kooky world and his vision of the afterlife?
Well, it started way before I had anything to do with meeting Tim Burton, because I was doing a film called The Lost Boys. This was one of my very favorite films ever that I worked on. And the art director came to me and said, his name was Bo Welch, by the way, and said, V, he says, I just got a script for this really cool movie. It's right up your alley. You got to do it. You got to come over and talk to him and get the job. And I went, okay. And that's when you could still do stuff like that. You can't do that anymore. Anyway, so I said, well, find out who's in production, and I'll go over and talk to him. So he said, well, I don't have a crew sheet yet. I just got the script. He says, but as soon as I know, and this is right in the middle of filming Lost Boys. So eventually he got a crew sheet, and it just so happens that the production manager on the show was the first AD on a film I did called 9 to 5 with Lily Tomlin. So he was the first AD, but now he's the production manager. So he's the guy who can actually get you in there and get the job. So I called up Richard Hashimoto. I said, Richard, you got to get me in there and meet that guy Tim Burton, that guy, you know, that's going to direct it. And then he says, it's too early, V, it's too early. So, you know, you've heard that expression, squeaky wheel gets the job done. Well, I called him every week and drove him absolutely insane. He finally says, okay, V, it's time to come in and meet him. I said, okay. So this movie had no money. And they were out on they were in a crappy little like construction trailer on the Culver City studio lot. It was a Warner Brothers film, but they didn't even want us on the Warner Brothers lot, so they sent us way the hell across town and put us in this tiny little studio to shoot this movie. So I walk into this trailer, and there's this old cork board on the wall, and it's got some kind of crumpled up papers with pictures pinned up there on guys that, like a guy digging through trash that looked like a derelict. And I thought, why are those pictures up there? That's so bizarre, right? And then I realized that that's the Beetlejuice character, and I thought, what the hell kind of movie is this anyway? And so I get in there and I open the door and I walk in to meet Tim Burton, and there's this guy sitting there in a rumpled up white t-shirt with his hair, you know, like in every direction, and he looks like he's about 18 years old. And I went, damn, this is the director? Okay, this is going to be a weird movie. So that was my first impression of Tim Burton, and I sat down and talked to him for a while. And he said, have you read the script? And I said, yeah. And I said, it's really kooky. I think it's going to be really fun. I said, what's your vision here? You know, and I didn't know anything about Tim Burton. I didn't know he was an artist. I had no idea who he was. And I knew that he had done the Pee-wee movie, but pretty much that was all I knew. So he said, well, there's some sketches out there of the character. And I said, oh, you want him to look like a derelict? And I said, but, and he says, well, no, not exactly. He says, I don't quite, you know, we're working on that. And I went, okay. So as probably not on the first meeting, but the second meeting I had with him when I finally got the job, we were talking about what the afterlife characters were going to be. And he said, I think they should be kind of pastel colored. And I said, pastel color? I said, you mean like Necco wafers? Now, you guys are probably not even old enough to know what Necco wafers are, but they're these really crappy candies, just about this big around, and they're like sugar pads, you know, they're just nasty. And he goes, yeah, just like Necco wafers. And I went, okay. So when we started testing the background, you know, all the people in the afterlife, I realized that pastel was not really going to work because it was so heavily saturated with color, all the lighting and everything, that none of that was going to show up. So we eventually went to darker colors. But it's actually the first time on a film that airbrushing makeup onto somebody had ever really been used extensively. I think they had done a little bit of it on Spaceballs, but up until then, no full characters had ever been airbrushed. So all of those characters in the afterlife, except Beetlejuice, funny enough, were all airbrushed. But he was not. He was done with a cream makeup and, as you know, and some very weird stuff glued all over him.